Hi, and welcome to this week's episode of the Guest List podcast. I'm your host, Steve Guest, and today's guest is somebody that I've known for a very long time and really looking forward to a good catch up and asking those questions that bring so much value to so many of you that tune in and listen. I'm going to jump straight into their bio and give you a little bit of background into this individual. So at the age of 46, today's guest has been trading successfully for the last 19 years, whilst also running their own trader education company. A handful of retail traders who is also an authorised money manager under London Eastern LLP, which is regulated by the FCA. To date, his fund is profitable since its inception in July 2020. Today's guest founded Traders Support Club and has been training and assisting new and experienced traders since 2007. In 2011, he was asked to be part of Rich Dad Education, to be part of their board of global advisors, and has been asked to speak and coach traders all over the world. Trading experience, successfully trading own funds since 2004, professional trading status at ETX Capital and Pepperstone, successfully runs his Beat the Banks managed fund. Training education, founder and head trainer at Traders Support Club, co-author of The Madness of Money, Rich Dad Education, Global Board of Advisors, London Forex Show speaker, and ShowFX World events in multiple locations across Europe and Asia. Ali Crooks, it's been a while.
It has. Steve, thanks for having me on, mate. I really appreciate it. It's an honor.
You know what? It's an absolute pleasure. We were kind of talking a little bit off air, weren't we? So I reckon 2011, 2012, I was first in a room, and I think, if I remember right, that was part of the Rich Dad Education.
I think it was, back then, back then, and they were, that was sort of back in the days where you had big rooms and you were filling, well, I wasn't, they were doing it, but filling, rooms of people that were keen to learn how to trade and keen to learn how to make money.
So that's it. I think, if I remember right, I think the process was I clicked on an ad that was like a 2 or 3 hour introduction. In a hotel somewhere, and I had a guest speaker, and then you could sign up to come for a 1 day or 2 day event. I think it was a 2 day event, because you get bought into the dream, make money, you side hustle, all of the kind of joys of doing the day job, bit of trading in the evening. And I walked in with no, I suppose, proper understanding of what it involves, what it took. I mean, if I was to do that now, so if I came to one of your events that I know you run as a kind of complete novice, complete beginner, what's your general introduction? How do you go about getting those?
I think my first phrase these days is "Are you sure?" And I think I would like to think that when you were in the room, I was fairly candid about what it took to do it, compared to some of the health, wealth, and happiness type events where you're going to be sat on the beach within 3 weeks with a laptop. The dream that isn't there. So I think I always start with that, because for me, when I started to learn to trade, it was very much it was more about getting away from where I was. So a lot of people come to me, they want a side hustle, like you said, an income. Some want to do it full time. For me, my route into trading was very painful, because I'd had a business that had failed. And in my mind, I didn't ever want a business partner. I didn't want to be beholden to anybody else. I wanted something that was completely under my control, which is hilarious, because you can't control the markets. But the idea that I was just my own solo person. So I didn't have any love for trading. It wasn't something like I'd had an interest in or pursued as a hobby, or was fascinated by charts. I just wanted something that wasn't what I just experienced. But very quickly, I found myself falling in love, is probably a bit of a push, but becoming very interested and becoming very passionate about it. Because one of the things I say to people is, I would say 60% of the people that would come through my door are going to be slightly more analytical orientated, numbers orientated, stats, spreadsheets orientated. And actually, they will pursue the accumulation of knowledge as the primary function to become a successful trader. And whilst that's important, I always say trading is a performance-based activity.
Yeah.
So, for example, you could have all of the know-how, how to get on the phone and close somebody on a sale or get a new prospect. But if you don't make X number of phone calls and have X number of rejections, you're only going to get so far. And trading's the same. You can know everything about a chart, you can know everything about the market and what the Fed's going to do and what impact the interest rates are going to have on the market. But if your trade loses, which statistically you're going to have a minimum of 40% of your trades lose, and you can't then push the button the next time, it's that knowledge isn't of any use in that moment. So I say trading is primarily a performance-based activity and a knowledge-based activity secondary. And I think that's I think that's especially important for the people that think the more that they simply know, the better trader they're going to be.
Yeah. In some instances, it can be the reverse, can't it?
Yes.
Because it's almost like you almost feel paralyzed because your strategy or your back testing and everything else says this is the trade you take. But actually something nags at the back of your mind because you've heard someone say something down the road, or you've read something on the news or in the paper.
Or you've had 3 losing trades that week or that morning, and suddenly paying attention to what the guy on CNBC is saying, whereas before that was never part of the process.
Yeah.
But the reason you're paying attention to them is because you're feeling unconsciously fearful about taking the next trade. So there's all these things going on. It's probably the same in recruitment. You know, you get a couple of knockbacks, or you do a great presentation and they don't buy. That next presentation is maybe that little bit harder because you're thinking, what if this next one ends up with the same result? It's not actually about you. So ironically, a lot of salespeople make very good traders because they're used to, or good salespeople because they're used to that element of rejection, and they know that there's a numbers game behind it. So I think that's where I come from, and I'm very fortunate because I do the thing that I teach. I can afford to be quite candid with people about them joining up and working with me, and as a result, that if they've been around the block and seen some of the other trading educators, that candidness makes them want to jump in even more, because I don't really have an agenda. Yes, having a trader education company is brilliant because it pays my bills. It means all my trading funds can just accumulate. But if I didn't have that, I could just trade and tick along. And that level of, I think that's my thing, is my level of candidness when I'm speaking to somebody, is because it isn't easy. We were talking just before how a lot of people underestimate, I think, in any pursuit, any form of high performance, that it isn't easy. And I think what you often see now with social media is you either see something that is one element of somebody's life that looks amazing and the rest of it's gone to shit, or you're seeing the end result of 10 years of hard work in that 1-minute video. And actually, I heard a great quote last week about the difference between professional and amateur, and the amateur turns up and does the thing, but it's the professional does that, but it's everything else that he does or she does in between that is the difference. And I think that's what I'm all about. It's not so much physically placing the trade. If you think about it from a mechanistic point of view, it's like buying something online. It's just you just press buttons, but it's all the work that you do on your mindset, all the work you do on your skill set in between the actual physicality of trading that will make you a successful trader.
Do you know what I've thought over the years? So I traded with you for probably maybe 3 years, I think, maybe 4 years.
Yeah.
Went off and did other things. And then in between those years, which would have been 2016, I paid for a guy that came in and did a day's worth of education. He had some strategies. He was winning big money on social media. Everything was lauded up. It was amazing. You sit there and you think, oh my God, if I could get anywhere close to what this guy's doing. He turned up in his Mini with holes in his socks, and I'm already thinking it's not quite like the Instagram lifestyle. I think he went to prison in the end. I think he went to prison for fraud or something. It wasn't to do with necessarily the trading element, but he was doing other stuff that he shouldn't be doing. But I picked holes in all of his strategies and told him I wasn't paying him for the day because I'd back tested what he'd come to teach me, and it didn't work. or at least one of them did. One of them
Right.
worked okay. But that came from the lessons I'd learned from you, the importance of back testing and trialing the strategies and making sure that you had enough data
Yeah.
to give you the comfort or peace of mind that actually, if you keep placing that trade, you'll come out on top at the end or as you go. I loved all them elements, but I think from a personal perspective, trading is one of the toughest things I've done, but actually has formed the basis of a lot of things I do now.
Yeah.
Like I always remember you saying that every trade you place is 1 in 1,000.
Yes.
That stays with me today, and I still repeat it to
I
people.
mean, but how relevant is that to what
It's
you do?
relevant to everything.
Yeah.
It's relevant to everything because I
Yeah.
never get too high or low over any one win or one loss, whatever that is.
What's interesting about that concept is it depends. That concept I tell everyone that I work with, but some people will take that they can be flippant with the trade that's in front. And I'm like, no, that just means you've got to, regardless of the result of that one trade, you're not in this for 2 weeks, yet emotionally you're acting like the 3 trades are the be all and end all. So they go, right, and then they almost swing the pendulum too far the other way, and now they're too nonchalant about the trade. So you've got to give it the attention and focus as if it is the only trade you're going to place. But when it comes to the result, you've got to peel yourself back. And I use this analogy of, imagine you're sitting and looking at the horizon out in the ocean, and that one individual trade in your next 1,000 trades is so insignificant in terms of the result, but the sum total of those 1,000 trades are what makes the difference. And I'm sure it's the same with what you do. Part of it is just sticking around. Now, yes, if you're sticking around and you're going full tilt east and your goal is to see a sunset, it doesn't matter how long you stick around for. But part of it is that just sticking around and just be willing to get feedback. I always say to people is 4 simple things: is learn, apply, feedback, reapply. You just keep running that model: learn, apply, feedback, reapply. You will get there. And if you can balance that with being honest about what you want, and I'm sure again you've seen it in recruitment, a lot of people will be enticed by the potential that they can make, but actually they have no interest in recruitment. They have, all they care about is the money. And I say it with trading, at some point you have got to fall in love with the process. You've got to enjoy the challenge of trading, or the dance, as I call it, because I see it as a dance. Sometimes I'm leading and I'm ahead and I feel good, and then sometimes I'm not, or I've trod on my partner's toes, or they've and it gets clunky and then it gets smooth again. And you've got to enjoy that process, and as well as have a hunger to make money, because the pendulum can swing the other way. And I've got people I've worked with that are so into it from a geeky interest hobby point of view that they never measure how they're getting on. So the money is just a measurement. It's this balance, and it's so personality specific, in that any type of person can trade, but they need an awareness of where their strengths and weaknesses are, down to their beliefs, down to their experiences, and their general personality. So
do you find that obviously that it is complicated? Trading is complicated because there's so many facets that can make an individual not press that button, not take the trade, stay out the trade, whatever it might be. And that can come down to a whole manner of mood. It could be, are you having a good or bad day? Have you just lost money somewhere else and you need to recoup it somewhere? There's so many elements. In your experience, and obviously the people that you've mentored and coached, are there kind of key traits that ultimately make a person successful in trading that others just simply don't have or aren't going to get?
Absolutely. First one is resilience. I think that I don't want to sound like one of those people that's sorely lacking in today's youth or today's society, because it's not. I've seen examples of young kids and people that I've worked with, or even just outside, of amazing resilience. And I've seen people who've worked a job that I would for their entire life that I would I'd have lasted a week. Yet when they come to trade, they have no resilience. So I would say resilience, but that then comes with beliefs around money. So what I'm find myself doing a lot more than I ever did before. And I think that's because I'm a little bit older and I'm a little bit less gun-ho, and I trade slightly differently. So I actually spend less time trading now than I used to. So I think I see more with what's going on. But that resilience is a lot down to people's beliefs around money. So I find myself actually coaching people around their beliefs around money more than I ever did before, because I see the impact. So it isn't necessarily a positive belief around money, but you have to be willing to let money go. So one of the analogies is when I trade, I've invested, the money's gone.
Yeah.
If some of it will come back, some of it won't. So it's a numbers game. So I say resilience, beliefs around money, self-awareness is huge. So it's not, a lot of people think that they've got to come with a bulletproof personality. And then as a result, they won't admit that they're fearful on that trade. They won't admit that they felt scared. They won't admit that they broke their rules. So self-awareness, I'd rather somebody go, do you know what, last 3 trades, I got the red mist.
Yeah.
I fucking lost it. I'd rather know that than that person go, yeah, everything's fine.
Yeah.
So self-awareness of what their triggers are, or at least enough self-awareness to know that there's an issue somewhere and they need help to work out what it is. So I've never worked with anybody that has not had either some form of fear issue or greed issue. You know, the pendulum. And I will say, if you imagine the pendulum, and hyper fear is on one side where you're so frozen you won't press the button. Yeah. Hyper greed is on the other side where, you know, you'll trade anything that moves. If, you know, there's a news announcement, you'll press buy. Yeah. You need to not be, people try to be in the middle. And I'm like, no, you need a little bit of fear and you need a little bit of greed. But the pendulum has to stay in a kind of 20% range. And the awareness of when it swings too far each way, and having that awareness is step one, and then building a strategy around to cope with that. So yeah, I'd say they're the top 3. So self-awareness, resilience, and a person's beliefs around money. And ironically, a lot of people who save money, so they might have 20, 30 grand in the bank. That's brilliant, because they're few and far between these days. But often they're not necessarily the ones that cope well with trading, because actually they want to hoard their money, and there has to be an element that you have to speculate to accumulate. It's you know, it's not gambling.
It's risk. There's risk, but it's hopefully, if you're trading correctly, it's a managed or quantified risk that you're not going to lose your house over.
No. I think that's a really important point, because I can remember sitting once at an event and watching. It's one of those big Excel events where they have 20 speakers. I wasn't speaking, but I was watching all the guys come on. And there was another trader guy speaking. And the guy sat next to me was a doctor. He had a master's degree and he was doing something unbelievably complicated in genealogy or something. Yeah. And the guy came out on the stage and he was showing them how he made 15 grand in 3 minutes that morning. Okay. And you could see this guy's leg was twitching. He was like, you know, I could see greed. Exactly. I could see the greed just kind of flooding up over this guy. And what it made me, and I'm sitting there going, well, okay, was that 15 grand made with 1% risk, or was it made with 10% risk? Yeah. How many losing trades did he have that morning before he shows you the one winning trade? So I'm going through all of these, see it GCSE maths, and I've got this guy here who's, you know, borderline Einstein, just being overwhelmed with greed. And it was a really good lesson and reminder for me that your background and qualifications don't automatically mean that you have the right marbles, for want of a better word, to be a good, because this guy was he lost his mind, and we could see his 15 grand in 3 minutes.
But it happens, doesn't it? Yeah. It happens with that trader I had ran for the day's strategy, because I'm sat there thinking that's like a game-changing amount of money. That if I could trade like that and I'm consistent, it could change the whole way forward for me and my family. And you get bought into that kind of that social media lifestyle of everything's successful, everything works out, and trading is just not that. It's not, is it? Because you have good and bad days, good and bad trades, months, weeks, days where you're up, months, weeks, days where you're down. Yeah. And it's finding that balance, that kind of bit in the middle where you almost detach yourself.
Yeah.
whilst
It's interesting.
understanding what's going on.
Oh, yeah, and one I found interesting doing the fund is I've become a little bit more like the novice trader. So I've noticed myself worrying about where the result is per month, because I have to submit my figures.
Of course, yeah, you're answerable, you're accountable.
I'm like a little, whereas I could get to the end of the month and be 5% down on my own trading account.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't be feeling great about it, but that's what it is.
Yeah.
But if I'm submitting even a 1% loss on the fund, and I know it's going to go there in black and white, and the PDF gets sent out to all, I'm a little bit edgy, and I'm like, it's actually been a really good experience, because it's helped me remember and feel what the novice guys that I work with go through, where they are a little bit more short-term focused. It's one thing saying, be long-term focused, look at the bigger picture, but that's one thing saying that, and actually for that client to experience it. So the fund's been very healthy for me, because I've gone, I'm just being a bit twitchy I'm just being a bit edgy about this trade.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's great, because I'm now, and that's why I think pushing yourself, and I know you do it with what you do, you're always looking to grow. That's been really great for me. And that wasn't something that wasn't the reason why I did it. But I was like, oh, okay, now I'm managing other people's money. I'm a little bit more twitchy and a little bit more indecisive, only slightly, but enough to make me go, okay, this is good. It's helping me relate to those guys more.
But that's where the self-awareness comes back in, because at least you know that it's there, and you can just, even if you have to just have a second look at the strategy, everything ties up, everything ticks, you're done. That's the next move.
Exactly. And it's fascinating how people can logically or ahead of time say they're okay with something. So when somebody invests in the fund, they have to sign a whole lot of material saying this is the maximum loss. This is the worst case scenario. The active figures show this drawdown, but this profit over a 20-year tested period. When you remember back testing, this was the worst losing run. This was and like, probably unlike most funds, we are literally ramming down people's throats how bad the worst period has been. So there's an element of realism there. And nobody goes, oh, I don't like that. They're like, yeah, that's fine. It's not a problem. And then we had a few people come in August, and because they came in August, the fund's sitting 27% up, but they come in August, they come in at a losing period. And then the email comes in, is everything okay? And I'm like, well, we're down 3%. The worst losing run is -6%. We're only halfway, but that was a real lesson. So somebody ahead of time, so if they've got space and time, they can go, yeah, it's fine. And when when they're hearing it from a numerical point of view, they're fine with it. But when they're experiencing it with their own money, the irony is the next month we had a 6% month, so it took everything back into profit. But it was very interesting again for me, seeing people being okay with something, but then when it's actually happening, being less okay with it. And I think that fascination around people's beliefs around money is something that I find interesting, and I would find that interesting if I couldn't trade tomorrow, it all had to stop for whatever reason, I would still find how people are around money fascinating. Like going into a casino, I don't know how to play any of the game. But I'm fascinated. I can stand there or sit there and just watch how people operate. Have a couple of wins, and then it's just
crazy. I had a client meeting. This is 3 years, probably pre-pandemic actually, so pre-COVID, 2019, 2020. And I had a client meeting, and they chose to meet in a casino for coffee. And I was up there at 7:30, so I was a bit early. Got my coffee, sat in the corner, and there must have been about 8-10 people in there already on the slot machines.
Wow.
They were all there when I left at midday, still putting cattle, the majority of them, if not more people in there then. And you sat there thinking, what? I can't get my head around it. I've never been that person anyway. I don't know how to use them, same as you, and I don't get it. I don't know what they're waiting for, because it's not likely to turn up.
No, exactly. I sometimes wonder if some people are doing it habitually. They're doing it because they haven't got anything else going on, but there's that underlying hope. And I always say to traders, if the moment you are hoping a trade wins, that's when you're moving into the gambler's mindset. Because a big challenge people have when they want to learn to trade is that the people around them will say things like, it's gambling, it's risky, and those people are right. There's no point trying to argue with them, because 80% of traders that start, anyone who goes into retail trading usually goes in without the right mindset, without all the things in place. So they are gambling, and they are treating trading like a hope. And I think there's nothing wrong with having that kind of greed element where you go, I'd love a side hustle, I'd love to grow my pension, and be motivated that way. But once you're in the game, if you're treating it like the guy that's putting money in the slot machine, which most retail traders are, it's not going to end well. You're going to sit there till 12. You're going to overtrade. You're going to do all of these things. So I think, and I read an interesting statistic, funny enough, last week, that people who have had the longest sustainable businesses are the ones that didn't actually quit their job on day X and throw everything into the business. They may have quit their job and done a bar job so that they could earn some money, build their business like that. And I'm very much like that. It's usually the alarm bells go off when a client goes, I want to go full time. Not that I think that they can't do it, but I want to make sure that they do it in a staged way, rather than they've had 1 month that equaled their paycheck and suddenly they've now think, well, let's do that every month. Or if I'm at home all day, if I can make $2,000 in 1 month when I'm only doing 5 hours of trading in an entire week, if I'm at home for 25 hours, I can do 25 hours a week, I'm going to make more money. And it's like, chances are, the fact you're sat at home, you're probably actually going to put yourself at more risk. For me, when I'm looking and working with the clients that want to do that, I'm all about them actually, maybe give it another 3 months. Maybe go and work at Sainsbury's so you can clock in, clock out, and then and then segue into it, rather than, right, I've got to quit my job and go full in, because the market doesn't care. The market's not going to go, oh yeah, congratulations.
There's no sympathy there, is there?
Yeah, exactly.
I remember I think I was sat in the 2 or 3 day course with you. It might have been a live event day even, and there was a couple of guys in the room, and they'd done exactly that. I think they'd quit their jobs and they'd got enough money to see them through the next 3 months. And their plan was to both trade full time together, work together, and make it their income. And I remember your face when they said it. I was like, all the pressure, that amount of pressure and that burden that you carry on the fact that you've got to have those winning months or those winning trades to be able to do or pay for whatever your mortgage and everything else. That pressure's too much.
Yes,
it's too much to do it when you're in a training day where you perhaps not traded before, to then think in 3 months I'm going to have mastered this. And
but the other thing is mastery, and this is why I think sales is such a good kind of comparative industry. Like, I've said it already, you can go and do the best presentation, you can cover every base, cover every customer need, and the customer just ain't buying that day for whatever reason that's out of your control. Trading's the same. You can have the perfect environment, the trade sets up, you do everything right. Last week, and again, the numbers are there. I'm using the numbers to illustrate a point, but I banked about 15-16 grand on a trade, but at one point it was at 29 grand. So I had to have the psychology of watching that disappear, literally on the screen, just watching the money disappear, because sticking to my rules on that strategy is more important than going, oh, do you know what? I'm just going to bank that. And that's like, people are like, how do you get to have a mindset like that? Well, you get to a mindset like that where you watch £29. Down. You have to, if you can't do it with £1,000, there's no chance of you doing it up there. And I'll have days where the market smiles at me, and I'll have days where the market laughs at me, and all I can do is smile and laugh back. I can't influence it. I can't take it out for a drink and, can we speak to the MD and make this happen? There's none of that. I can't do anything to influence the situation. The market's going where it's going. So that's why I think the pressure becomes so great, because that person will inevitably want to try and control the situation. And the best traders accept that they can end up up or down on the measurement period of the month. I had an interesting one last year. So I'd made about 45% return in the first quarter. I made no money in quarter two, not any money. I was down. I traded. I was up, down, up, down, up, down for an entire quarter. Again, clients, is everything okay? Do we need to retest the strategies? I'm like, it's one quarter. But to most people, 1/4 is a long period of time, and we're seeing
Especially
more.
you'd started in that quarter as well.
Yes, and
Yeah.
and half of the people messaging were the people that were
Yeah,
saying that. It's like I said, you've seen the data, but now you're experiencing it. And then interestingly, in the first 3 weeks of Q3, we had about 15-16% of trades come in. And it's a little bit like buses,
Yeah.
they could have been spread out nicely over the last few weeks of Q2 into Q3. No, they just happened to fall. And if you're measuring it right on the point, you've got to have measurements and yardsticks, just like you have in sales.
Yeah.
But with trading, it could just be a week later that you make your month's money. And again, if you've got to take a wage out of that, or you've got a wife and kids going, I thought you said,
Yeah. You weren't having bread and water later.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I say to people, I'd rather be in a job than in that situation. I'd rather, and it's not.
And have it as the side hustle.
Yeah.
Yeah. With money.
Have it as a side hustle. Or get to the point that you have enough funds in the bank.
Yeah.
That you know that statistically, you've got to have, I don't know, the worst performing period in 20 years, the 6 months you choose to do it, for you to not earn any money. So the stats and the odds are so stacked in your favor that you can afford to almost underperform and not do it. So the phrase that we use is a little bit like targets in sales. So you'll look at your back testing, you'll look at your own results and say, what's the capacity? And then you will look and go, what's the reality? So if I want to make 50% a year, there has to be at least 100% a year on the table. Because I want to allow for mistakes. I want to allow for bad times. I want to allow for what we're seeing at the moment. We're seeing economic conditions from the 1980s. Half the guys I work with weren't even born in the 90s. They were just, so they're sitting there going, what's all this inflation going on? And I haven't traded through these experiences. Some of this is new to me. So I want the capacity in the strategy that if it doesn't go well, I am either on track for my long-term target, or I'm not worrying about where the money's coming. And I think people get drawn in. It's the concept that I always talk about is recency bias. So people are affected by what's happened to them most recently, the losing trade, the winning trade. I say to people, can you tell me what the result of your trade was 3.5 months ago on the Wednesday? No one's going to be able to tell you. So that being influenced by what happens short term is, I think, something that affects too many traders.
And I think back to things like that. So I do think my training and my education through you. So I signed up for the 12-month mentorship. So we spent a lot of time talking in various guises, and I see everything these days as a journey. And nothing is about an immediate return. Writing the books, creating a podcast, building a recruitment business, all of these things aren't about everything working on day one, everything being successful, because it's not. There's ups and downs, there's shifts in mindset, there's shifts in success and failure and all the bits in between. And I think sometimes because we're surrounded by this, I keep going back to the social media kind of lifestyle, that we forget that actually to have that sort of lifestyle, there's problems along the way. There's issues, there's downsides, there's struggles, there's troubles. I remember placing a trade and I was doing my full-time job, and I looked at the charts and I was 250 pips in profit, going in the direction. It wasn't far off my target. And one of my clients called. So I went in the meeting room and I was on the phone for no longer than 10, 15 minutes. I came back and I'd lost, gone the other way, hit my stop loss. I was out of the trade. I was like, oh my God, how's that happened? And the emotional journey you can go through can make a significant difference, whether you appreciate it at the time or not. But that is trading. And I think those lessons taught me so much, in that you can have crappy days. You can have days where your trades fell, or your placement hasn't worked, or your guy hasn't turned up for interview, or your book doesn't sell, whatever it might be. It's about making sure that the next step is a little bit better. The next day you do things towards getting you towards your goal. And I think for me, trading taught me so many lessons about that in general life anyway.
That's great. I think that's hugely important for anybody listening, because what I tell my guys is that you go into it. If you go into it expecting to get to this point in time where, you know, the oasis in the desert where everything just works, every time you look at a chart, it wins. The interesting stat is if you look at traders that have been successful for a 10-year period, their win-loss ratio actually stays the same or goes down. Okay. So what happens is their resilience has gone up. So, but what they're able to do is when they do win, they capitalize with a bigger winner than a loser.
Yeah.
So there's that assumption from the average person that comes into the game that, well, if I've been doing this 10 years, I'm going to be able to, you know, look at a chart and tell which way it's going. I'm no better at picking winners than I was 10 years ago, but I'm better at running the trade. So I've got that hurdle doesn't disappear through that time. And like you're saying, you will still have issues in your business and you'll still have issues going. And it's, a friend of mine says, it's a cheesy phrase, it's new levels, new devils. It's that you'll get to, you know, managing other people's money and suddenly, oh, okay, I'm finding this harder than I thought I would. And, or you build your business to a certain point and you've got to hire staff, and that process you've never done before. And I think the more people can earlier on get to the point of appreciating that this is going to be a struggle, and my goal is to reduce the struggle and learn from my mistakes and make each loop smaller so I can get on track quicker. So I always know when a trader's doing well is they'll message less. They'll tell me, they can't wait to tell me, but they'll message less in one of my Telegram groups. So the quieter people get often is the way that, oh, okay, because what's happening, I know you still having the losing trades, but you're not screaming about it in the Telegram group. So they're going through the loops more quickly because they're learning from their experience.
We talk about embracing the journey. Just enjoy the ups and downs when you can. And if you're not kind of getting past that, then find a way to either deal with it or manage it or come up with a solution that gets you past it, whatever that might look like. So in terms of people that you have around you, who do you feel over time has perhaps been the biggest influence, or who do you hold close when you're perhaps having those struggles? Maybe you're having a poor quarter or things are going the wrong way. Who have you had around you? This can go back to when you first started as well.
God, I mean, you know, I'm a big fan of, you know, coaches and mentors, and it's that, you know, the cynical person go, well, yeah, of course you are, because you coach and mentor people. Well, whatever.
You guys all stick together.
Yeah, that kind of thing. But I can't. I mean, the list goes on. I mean, I say hard work had to be my dad.
Yeah.
So I was pissing and moaning that I didn't have enough money, and all the kids at school have more money than me. So I was angling for pocket money, and he said, "No, go and get a job." So I went and got a job. I went and got a paper round. I lied and said I was 12 when I was only 10. You know, back when you didn't have to get, you know, you could hustle around like that. And then after when I got my first paycheck, I got my first cash in. He doubled my pocket money, and that was the first thing I went, I mean, hard work really does pay off. So, you know, there was no chance of a
good lesson in there.
I tried for 6 months to get him to pay me more, like give me more money. No, as soon as I got a job, so suddenly my return on investment has just gone through the roof. So that always sticks with me, because my dad's not a coach type person. He's not a parent that as a pushy parent or anything like that, or, you know, an enthusiastic parent that, you know, like you see some, you know, but just that thing that he did was just, that's always stuck with me, because hard work is part of it. I don't care what anyone says. I would say recently, Sarah, she's been through breast cancer, and seeing how she dealt with that has helped me be less pissy and moany about stuff that isn't quite as important. And it really actually, when something happens in family, and most families have experienced it on some level, you know, indirectly or directly, it does just give you a little, you know, the things that you moan about, or a losing trade, it's like, it actually doesn't quite mean as much. So that's, I would say, seeing how she coped with that was really inspirational. I get a lot from my clients, like, you know, I take a lot of energy working with you all those years ago. I don't take that lightly. I think anyone that's willing to hand over their money and their time to me, I take that very, very importantly, and I get a lot of inspiration from my clients. So I'd say, you know, as a collective, yes, you get some nightmare clients, but that's the price you pay for getting the good ones. Coach wise, I'd say recently Paul Moore. I've worked with him quite closely, and I liked his style of coaching and his upfrontness and his he's brash and loud, but he was very quick to tell you what didn't work. And I think in a world of gurus that only, you know, as we all naturally can post the good stuff, he's very good at saying, well, tried this, it didn't work. Tried this, screwed up with this. You won't believe what a mess I made of that. And I'm like, it's refreshing.
Yeah.
John DeMartini, you've heard of him. I say he was the first coach guru, Tony Robbins type person that made me feel okay for not being happy all the time. I think back in the day, it was all very happy clappy when you were going to a lot of these things and you had to be happy all the time and positive. And John was like, you're not that person. You're kind and cruel. You're happy and sad. You're both sides. And I think that really helped me. And I use that a lot with clients because I think clients feel they should always be positive or they need motivation. And I'm like, if you're relying on motivation every day, or you're relying on feeling positive every day, it's over before it's even started. Your professional's got to go out there and do, regardless of how they feel in that moment. So yeah, I got a lot from him. I would say that's the list could go on.
I would say it could be endless. I remember some of the books that you recommended reading. There was Trading in the Zone, wasn't there?
Yeah.
What else did we? Way of the Turtle.
Yes, Way of the Turtle. Great book about thinking long term.
Yeah.
One I'm reading at the moment that is, I think, really useful is called The Attributes by a guy called Rich Davini. He's an ex Navy SEAL, and he was running Navy SEAL teams. And it's the difference between skills and attributes. And for me as a coach, this was brilliant because the idea is, he uses the analogy of shooting a gun. He says, as Navy SEALs, we can train anyone to shoot a gun as long as they can see properly. We can teach that. But to shoot a gun accurately in a war zone, that's an attribute. So learn the right person. So the attribute is, the skill is being able to do it correctly. The attribute is being able to do it in the situation. So again, that links back to what I was saying earlier with, you can have somebody who knows everything, but two losing trades, and they start to gamble their money away. So the difference between skills and attributes, I found that really interesting, and looking at myself as well.
Yeah, no, I like that. I think back with my trading journey, and I still trade now. It's not something that I've left behind. I would perhaps call myself very much your kind of Way of the Turtle trader. It's long term. No, it fits because I have so many things that I'm doing. My time in front of charts is limited to a kind of quick look just to see if it's still doing what it's doing, whether it's up or down. It's a down day, it's an up day, but because I'm in it longer term, it takes away some of the stresses that perhaps I used to have when it was more day trading, or the 4-hour and daily charts and things like that. But
day trading is hard. Day trading is hard, even if you're doing it alongside a job for a more. It's hard.
It's hard when for what I was doing when I was in meetings with clients and candidates and time at the office, you would miss trades because you just weren't there. Couldn't be seen to be nipping out of a client meeting because I've just got to put something on the DAX, or just got to, does anyone know what the pound's doing today? You couldn't do it. So in terms of the strategy, and if you'd back tested and it hit certain requirements and you weren't at the screen to physically place it, that could have been the winning trade. It could have been the losing one, but you got to a point where I was always kind of just trying to get it to fit around my day job, which wasn't kind of working. So, okay. I mean, in terms of the Traders Support Club, now I've been a part of that. What's that up to these days? Has that changed significantly since?
Well, yes, a lot has changed. The core philosophy hasn't changed. But what we've done is we did it in the start of lockdown, is we created a 4-week training program that's it was with Kerry, but she's off building a house now. So she's not around. She's building houses and doing all sorts of crazy stuff. I'm still trading. So I run that. And what it is, it's a 4-week program, but it's once you get 2-hour training with me, you get strategies, you get material. But I call it's 200 quid. It's the try before you really buy kind of course. So it's 4 weeks. And at the end of it, we profile everybody that comes through. So whether to try and get people to the point where you are now, but get them to that point earlier. So look, the reality of this is I'm fully committed to my job. I've got a family. I do triathlons, but I want to day trade. no, you want to day trade because you like the idea of it. Your circumstances, you're setting yourself up for failure. So the idea is we get people to the end of that, and then people know, based on their personality, fear and greed levels, skill levels, goals, and time available, what's the best type of trading for them to do. So rather than run a, we have a day trading room, we have a swing trading room, so people can then funnel into the area that suits them best. So I would say that's probably the biggest change than before. Whereas when you were around, it was very much the day trading room, because I don't day trade anymore. So, and I wouldn't go back. I loved it for that period of time I did it, but now I'm happy swing trading. I get enough stimulation from it. And I think with TSC where it is, I'm happy to do that. So I say that's probably the biggest fundamental change. We've implemented a bit of technology. So we have some algorithms that will trade. They won't trade for you, but what they'll do is they'll enter trades. So that classic example where you've got a client meeting, you can press a couple of buttons because you've done the analysis on the market. It fits everything, but the only bit that now needs to happen is it needs to enter at a certain point and create a certain level of risk. We've created algorithms so the guy who is busy can profit from the trades that might set up at 2:15 in the afternoon. But there's no chance of them being by the screen. So what we had previously was people doing what we call day trading, so sitting at their screens all day, or end of day trading. Whereas now what we've got is in the middle, we've got what's called intraday swing. So it gives that person the chance to say, right, I do my analysis before I go to work. And then if any of those trades are looking ready to go, I can press a button and the algorithm will do the last quarter of placing the trades, setting the risk, setting the levels. So it means that person can sit back and all they've got to do is check in at the end of the night, but they benefit from some of the intraday activity. But again, it's still long term. So I think I'm doing a lot more on mindset. So it was never something I didn't do, but I'm doing a lot more. I'm not doing a lot more one-on-one coaching as well. So I think that's something I really enjoy, because you get the chance, like we're doing here, to talk on a different level. And I think some people prefer or open up more easily about where they're at and what they're doing if it's just me and them. Whereas if there's 5 or 6 people on a Zoom call, they're just less likely to do it. Some people are fine. They can just tell you everything in front of 20 people, others aren't. And rather than me being what I may have been 10 years ago, it's just, well, come on, I'm now appreciating that people's lives are different and their journey to this point is different. So
we're all complicated beings, aren't we? I've made a career out of being the quiet, unassuming person at the back of the room until I'm not. But actually, I probably learn better on one-to-ones. I think it makes you more accountable, and you can be more honest because the situation is there. You've got to talk through it. So, what about events? Have you got events coming up?
We are looking to do. We've been on the live event front. We've been fairly static, but we are looking to do an open day, probably Q1 of 2023, and that's likely to be Birmingham. Which I know so we're going to do that, and then we are going to start a series, I think, of like coffee mornings. So the chance for people to not necessarily come and sit and learn and then decide whether they want to do it, but just come and maybe talk to me, Kerry if she's around, other members. So do a little informal thing. And I've noticed that a lot of traders, and this is something that, again, I probably wasn't looking for when I was involved, is I wasn't looking for the community in quite the way some traders are. And I think acknowledging that has been a big thing for me, going, sometimes traders just want to speak and hang out with other traders because nobody at home gets it. It's a lonely
thing, can't it? You're sat in front of a chart all day and writing out back testing results, and you don't see anyone for hours.
And other people in the family just don't get it. And I think I've said to them, your job is not to try and convince them or teach them, because it's not their thing, it's your thing. So let's spend some more time, even if it's just one Saturday every 6 weeks or one Saturday every couple of months, where they can all just grab a coffee, bacon sarnie, and just chill out and talk trading in an informal environment. So I think they're the 2 things we're going to be focusing on for events.
And if
what I do is online now.
It works, doesn't it?
Yeah,
it works. And I think you have the ability to add value to far more people. And you have the ability to access more people, to put your offering out there and everything else. I've done it with the recruitment training program. That is 100% virtual. and it's good. Obviously, I don't think you ever beat that face to face, which is why you still need your coffee mornings and your events, but it works.
Yeah. Totally.
Okay, so if people have listened to this and they want to get in touch, they want to find you, where do you normally hang out?
Well, the easiest thing, the worst thing you can probably do is find me on social media and send me a DM, because I'm so bad. I think you messaged me on social media. It was like, Steve, sorry, it was like 3 weeks before I got back to you.
Yeah.
So Sarah,
I'd remembered anyway, Ali. I'd put no pressure on a response.
So yeah, I think probably the best is, I mean, if you go to tradersupportclub.com, so I call it, it's the thing of it like the Ron Seal. We're traders, it's a club and we support people. Just go to tradersupportclub.com. You can sign up as a free member. So if you're listening to this and you haven't even got a clue what we're talking about, there's some free videos and a couple of free webinars that are recorded. So you can just go the absolute basics of trading. Yeah. Then you can contact us on support. Every email is tracked. So if you send us an email saying, I'm interested, I want to find out a bit more, I have this thing a bit like you where I will reply to everyone. Doesn't matter whether they're free or paid members. I'll always get back to everyone. So don't feel you can't message in saying, hi, I watched the podcast, I'm interested, but I haven't got a clue what to do next. We will get back to you. So that's probably the best way, because then the emails are tracked. But yeah, social media is just Ali Crooks 1. I think you just put Ali Crooks into the Instagram, you'll find me. So just you can search Trader Support Club on Facebook as well. It's there. So you'll find that as well. So I'm around, even though I'm not hot on the DMs like the kids.
I always ask this question to every single guest. So if there's one single piece of advice that you'd leave the listeners, what would that be? We've covered a lot, haven't we?
Yeah. When you say one single piece, it's so that's your coach thing. It's not just one, but
come on.
I would say, I think it's going to take longer than you think.
Yeah.
The challenge with that.
Really good comment. Yeah. I love that.
I think the challenge with that is you almost need to think it's not, so that you take the action. Yeah. So if someone said to you, it's going to take 3 years, and you're like, well, you bothered then. But so you almost need the naivety, I think, to do it. Yeah. But when it's not necessarily happening as quickly as you want, be okay with it.
Yeah.
Duncan Bannatyne said to me, whatever he looks at a business proposal, he doubles the time and halves the profits. And if it still looks okay, he might be then interested. So I think it's that idea. It's going to take longer than you think. And I think if people can embrace that, they're actually their resilience levels will go up.
Love that, Ali. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Steve, thank you so much. It's been really great. I've enjoyed it. It's great to see you.